everything. Every day, you are either moving closer to the person you want to be or drifting further away. The difference is rarely in giant leaps. It's in the small, everything, almost invisible choices you make from the moment you wake up until the time you go to sleep. Imagine if, day after day, you improved even just a little, your mindset sharper, everything, your habits stronger, your energy more focused. Over time, those small gains compound into extraordinary transformation. This audiobook is not about overnight success, everything. It's about becoming unstoppable by getting better every single day. There's something magical about the idea of daily growth. Not dramatic, not explosive, everything. Not the kind of change that makes headlines, but the quiet, steady, almost invisible progress that takes place when you commit to getting just a little better every single day. Everything. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week, but they underestimate what they can do in a year of consistent effort. That's where the true transformation happens. Not in bursts, everything, but in rhythms. Not in sprints, but in steps. And if you're willing to take those steps, you can quite literally rewrite the story of your life. Think about it for a moment. Everything. Every great achievement, every masterpiece, every breakthrough you admire was not the result of one giant action, but the result of many small ones stacked together over time. Everything. A bodybuilder doesn't gain strength from a single workout. A pianist doesn't master their craft after one lesson. A writer doesn't create a best-selling book in a day of typing. Everything. The real difference comes from showing up over and over, even when it doesn't look glamorous, even when it feels ordinary. Growth is a game of consistency. Everything. I remember a young man I once met at a seminar. He wasn't the most confident person in the room. He didn't have the loudest voice or the most impressive resume. Everything. But when he stood up to speak, he said something simple that stuck with me. He said, "I just decided to get 1% better each day." That was it. No grand strategy. Everything. No complicated system. Just 1% better. Every single day. He had been overweight, struggling with energy, working a job he didn't like. Everything. But he told us how he started walking for 10 minutes a day. Just 10. Then it became 20. Then 30. A year later, he had lost 50 pounds, not because of some sudden diet craze. Everything. But because of small, daily decisions that compounded over time. His voice cracked as he said, "I'm not where I want to be yet. Everything. But I'm so far from where I started." And that is the power of daily growth. It doesn't matter where you are right now. If you show up consistently, everything, your future can look unrecognizable compared to your present. We live in a culture addicted to the idea of overnight success. Everything. We want to believe that someone just wakes up one day with millions in the bank, or with the perfect body, or with a skill that seems godlike. But if you peel back the curtain, everything, you find years of repetition, countless hours of practice, and a commitment to daily growth long before anyone else was watching. Every master was once a beginner who chose not to quit. Everything. Every legend you admire was once invisible, doing the small things that no one clapped for. That's what makes the difference. The truth is, everything. Daily growth is not always exciting in the moment. In fact, it can feel painfully ordinary. Reading for 15 minutes before bed doesn't feel like much. Everything. Writing a single page of a journal doesn't seem like it will change your life. Saying no to the extra dessert tonight might not look like it will shift your health. Everything. But the magic is hidden in repetition. Over days, weeks, and months, those little actions add up. Everything. Imagine the power of reading 15 minutes every night for a year. That's over 90 hours of personal development. Everything. Imagine writing a single page daily. That's a book written by the end of the year. Imagine saying no to small temptations consistently. That's dozens of pounds saved. Everything. Hundreds of moments of energy gained, and a new lifestyle built without fanfare, just decision by decision. I want you to think about bamboo. Everything. There's a certain species of bamboo that doesn't break the soil for years. You water it, you care for it, you see nothing. For months, sometimes even years, there is no visible growth. Everything. People might laugh at you. They might say it's a waste of time. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading, foundations are being built, strength is accumulating. And then, everything. In a short span, that bamboo shoots up feet into the air, almost overnight. Was it overnight success? No, it was years of unseen, daily growth. That's exactly how your life works. Everything. You may not see immediate results. You may feel like nothing's happening. But if you stay consistent, one day, people will look at you and wonder how you grew so fast. Everything. They won't see the roots, but you will know. And this is where most people fail. They start something with enthusiasm, but because they don't see quick results, they stop. Everything. They mistake invisibility for failure. They think if it's not visible yet, it's not working. But growth doesn't always announce itself early. Sometimes, everything. It hides until the foundation is strong enough. That's why daily commitment is everything. The process is planting seeds, not waiting for instant harvests. Let me give you a very real, everything, very practical exercise. I call it the small win ritual. Every morning, decide on one small action you can take today that moves you forward. Just one. Maybe it's reading a chapter. Everything. Maybe it's calling a mentor. Maybe it's taking a walk. Maybe it's writing 3 sentences of your book. Whatever it is, commit to it, finish it, and celebrate it. Everything. That celebration might sound silly, but it builds momentum. Because growth is not just about stacking habits. It's also about stacking confidence. Everything. When you start to see yourself as the kind of person who follows through, you unlock something powerful. You no longer just do the action. You become the kind of person who does the action. Everything. And that identity shift is what creates lasting change. Here's the beautiful thing: once you build momentum, growth becomes addictive. You start to crave progress, no matter how small. Everything. You no longer wait for motivation to strike, because action itself becomes the fuel. The moment you start moving, you want to keep moving. And every small win stacks onto the next. Everything. Until you look back and realize how far you've come. It's like climbing a staircase in the dark. At first, you only see the next step. But after a while, when you turn around, everything, you're stunned by the height you've reached. Think about how athletes train. The best ones don't rely on massive bursts of effort. They rely on steady, consistent practice. Everything. Kobe Bryant didn't just wake up one day with legendary skill. He showed up before dawn, taking hundreds of shots when no one was watching. Everything. Serena Williams didn't dominate tennis by luck. She repeated her drills day after day, perfecting what looked simple but demanded discipline. Everything. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often just consistency over time. And this is why your life can change in ways you can't even imagine if you embrace daily growth. Everything. If you put your faith not in luck, not in sudden breakthroughs, but in the process of small improvements. 1% better today might not feel like much. Everything. But 1% better every day compounds into extraordinary transformation. Think about it. If you get 1% better every day for a year, you're not just a little improved. Everything. You're 37 times better by the end of it. That's the math of growth. That's the miracle of compounding effort. And here's the truth that makes it even more powerful. Everything. You don't need to be perfect. Daily growth is not about never missing a day, never making a mistake, never falling short. It's about coming back again and again, even after you stumble. Everything. Progress is messy. There will be days you don't feel like it, days you slip up, days you question whether it's worth it. But if you choose to return, if you choose to keep showing up, everything, you're still growing. And growth like that, the kind that survives difficulty, is the kind that lasts. I want you to picture your future self. Not in 10 years, not in 5 years, everything, but just 1 year from now. Imagine who you could be if, starting today, you committed to small, consistent actions every single day. What would change about your health, your relationships, everything? Your mindset, your career. How much further would you be if you just kept showing up, no matter how ordinary the actions seemed? The truth is, everything. 1 year of daily growth can make you unrecognizable to the person you are today. That is the gift you hold in your hands, and it starts with the choice you make right now. Everything. When you wake up in the morning, you are standing at the doorway of possibility. The way you step through that doorway will determine not just the rhythm of your day, everything, but the quality of your life. Most people never realize how much power they give away in those first waking minutes. They roll over, hit the snooze button, everything, scroll through endless notifications, and start the day already distracted, already reacting. And when you begin your day in reaction, everything, you hand control to the world around you instead of keeping it in your own hands. But when you master your morning, when you step into those early hours with intention, everything changes. Everything. You no longer stumble into the day, you command it. You no longer drift with the current, you set the direction. Think about this, everything. The mornings are the only time of day when the world is quiet, when demands haven't yet piled up, when you still have a clear slate to write on. If you lose that time, everything, you often lose control of the rest of the day. But if you claim it, even for just a few focused moments, you create momentum that carries you forward with purpose. Let me tell you a story. Everything. There was a young man who once believed mornings didn't matter. He'd wake up late, rush to get dressed, everything, grab something quick to eat, if he ate at all, and stumble into his work half prepared. His days blurred into each other, filled with stress, frustration, everything, and a sense that he was always behind. That young man was me. I thought productivity was about cramming more into the day, about staying up late and grinding through fatigue. But I was wrong. Everything. What I discovered over time was that the battle for a productive, meaningful day is often won before most people even get out of bed. Once I changed my mornings, my life followed. Everything. You might be wondering, what exactly makes a powerful morning routine? The truth is, it doesn't have to be complicated. Everything. You don't need to wake up at 4 in the morning like some guru or spend hours meditating in silence. You simply need to claim ownership of your first hour. That's it. Everything. Think of it as the golden hour, the time when your mind is most impressionable and your energy most malleable. If you feed it chaos, you'll carry chaos with you. But if you feed it clarity, everything, gratitude, and focus, you'll carry strength with you. One of the first shifts you can make is in how you wake up. Many people dread the alarm clock. Everything. They see it as an enemy dragging them out of sleep. But imagine instead if your alarm was the sound of opportunity calling you, reminding you that you've been given another day, everything, another chance. That small shift in perspective can turn resentment into readiness. Place your alarm away from your bed so you're forced to stand up, stretch, and breathe deeply. Everything. Those first breaths should remind you today is a gift. From there, take a few minutes for stillness before you rush into movement. It doesn't matter whether you call it meditation, prayer, everything, or reflection. What matters is that you pause. Sit quietly and center yourself. Even 3 minutes of silence can reset your entire nervous system and bring your mind into focus. Everything. In that silence, remind yourself of who you are becoming. Not just what tasks you'll do today, but the kind of person you're growing into. This is not about checking boxes, everything. It's about aligning your identity with your actions. After stillness comes movement. The body was not meant to go from hours of sleep into hours of sitting. Everything. When you move your body in the morning, even briefly, you awaken energy that would otherwise stay dormant. A few push-ups, a stretch routine, everything. A quick jog around the block, whatever fits your lifestyle. You're not training to become an athlete in that moment. You're signaling to your brain and body that you are alive, everything, that you are capable and that you are ready to perform. That simple act can shift your posture, your confidence, and even the way you handle challenges throughout the day. Now, everything. Let's talk about fuel. What you put into your body in the morning will either sharpen your focus or cloud it. Everything. Too many people reach for sugar or heavy foods that spike energy and then crash it. Instead, think of your first meal as the foundation of your energy. Everything. Hydrate with water before anything else. Your body has been without water for hours, and even slight dehydration can dull your concentration. Everything. Then choose something that gives you steady energy. A balance of protein, healthy fats, and maybe fruit or vegetables. This isn't about dieting, it's about respect. Everything. Respect for the machine you're asking to carry you through the day. But perhaps the most overlooked element of mastering your morning is setting intention. Everything. Before you dive into emails or notifications, ask yourself, what is the one thing that, if I accomplished it today, would make the day a victory? Everything. Too often we scatter our attention across dozens of tasks, leaving us exhausted but unsatisfied. But when you identify your priority, your true north, you step into the day with clarity. Everything. Write it down if you must. Speak it aloud. Carry it with you. This becomes the lens through which you measure success, not the noise of endless to-dos. Let me share another example. Everything. A friend of mine, a successful entrepreneur, used to struggle with overwhelm. He'd wake up, check his phone, and immediately feel crushed by messages, problems, and demands. Everything. He told me he felt like his mornings were stolen before they even began. One simple change turned it around. He made a rule: no phone for the first hour of the day. Instead, everything. He used that time for a short workout, a healthy breakfast, and a journal where he wrote 3 things he was grateful for and the single most important goal for the day. Within weeks, everything. His stress levels dropped, his focus sharpened, and he found himself leading with confidence instead of constantly reacting. It wasn't magic, it was mastery. The truth is, everything. Mastering your morning doesn't mean your days will always go perfectly. Life has its unpredictabilities, but it does mean you are no longer entering the day empty-handed. Everything. You're carrying tools, focus, and an energy that prepare you for whatever comes. It's like a soldier sharpening his sword before battle or an artist preparing her brushes before painting. Everything. That preparation doesn't guarantee the outcome, but it shapes the way you show up. And here's the beauty of it: once you master your morning, you begin to build trust with yourself. Everything. Each day you wake with intention, each day you follow through on your ritual, you prove to yourself that you are someone who follows through, someone who can be counted on. Everything, even by your own heart. That trust is powerful, because when you trust yourself, you move through life with confidence that no setback can easily shake. Everything. Some people will say they're not morning people, that they do their best work at night, and maybe that's true for you. Everything. But this isn't about the exact hour you wake up. It's about the structure of how you start. Whether it's 6 in the morning or 9, whether you wake with the sunrise or after, everything. The principle remains: the beginning of your day sets the trajectory for all that follows. Claim it with purpose, and you claim the rest of the day with strength. Everything. I want you to picture this for a moment. Imagine two versions of yourself. One rolls out of bed late, checks notifications, skips breakfast, and rushes into the day frazzled and behind. Everything. The other wakes with intention, breathes deeply, moves their body, sets gratitude in their heart, and walks out the door knowing their priority. Everything. Now fast forward those two versions, not just one day, but 1 year. Which version has grown stronger, calmer, more fulfilled? Which one is leading a life of direction rather than distraction? Everything. That vision should remind you that mastering your morning is not just about today. It's about who you become tomorrow. Every sunrise is a chance to begin again. Everything. To set the stage for the life you are building. Don't underestimate it. Don't hand it away. Master your morning, and you will master much more than the hours ahead. Everything. You will master your focus, your energy, and ultimately your future. When most people think about habits, they imagine discipline, grit, and willpower. Everything. They imagine a person waking up at 5 in the morning, fighting against the urge to stay in bed, pushing themselves to do what they don't want to do. And yes, everything. Sometimes discipline does feel like that. But here's the truth: the people who seem the most disciplined, the ones you admire for their consistency and results, everything, are not forcing themselves every day. They're not waking up every morning with a battle of willpower. Everything. They have simply designed their lives in such a way that their good habits feel natural, almost automatic, while their bad habits become inconvenient and harder to fall into. Everything. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on systems. Think about brushing your teeth. Nobody wakes up in the morning and debates with themselves. Everything. Should I brush today or not? You don't need motivation. You don't even need to think about it. It's just part of your life. Everything. Built into your routine so deeply that not brushing would feel wrong. That's the power of habit design. Imagine if exercise, reading, journaling, everything, or any skill you want to master felt as normal, as automatic, and as non-negotiable as brushing your teeth. That's what it means to build habits that stick. Everything. I want you to remember something: success is not built on occasional intensity. It is built on consistent behavior. You can run 5 miles today, but if you never run again, everything, that effort won't transform your body. You can eat a salad once, but if your diet doesn't shift long-term, nothing changes. It's the same in your career, your relationships, everything, your finances. What matters is not what you do once in a while, but what you do repeatedly. And habits are the vehicle for repetition. Now, everything. The mistake most people make is that they start too big. They set a goal like, everything. I'm going to go to the gym 6 days a week, or I'll write for 2 hours every day. The first day, they feel amazing. The second day, they're proud of themselves. Everything. By the third or fourth day, the excitement fades, life gets busy, and suddenly the habit collapses. Then comes guilt, shame, and the feeling of failure. Everything. But it wasn't failure. It was poor design. The secret to building habits that last is to make them small enough that you can't fail. If you want to start exercising, everything, don't begin with a full hour. Begin with 5 minutes. Yes, just 5 minutes. Do a short walk, a few push-ups, something so simple that skipping it would feel silly. Everything. If you want to start journaling, don't aim for a full page every day. Start with writing one sentence, one single sentence, because the point in the beginning is not intensity. Everything. The point is identity. Every time you show up, even in a small way, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to be. You're proving to yourself everything. I am the kind of person who exercises. I am the kind of person who writes. I am the kind of person who learns. Over time, those votes add up everything, and your brain begins to see the new identity as normal. And when something becomes normal, it becomes automatic. Let me give you a real story. A man once decided he wanted to get fit, everything. But he knew he had failed many times before with extreme workout plans. So he made a new rule for himself. Every day, he would drive to the gym. But here's the twist. Everything. He was only allowed to stay for 5 minutes. That's it. He would walk in, lift weights for 5 minutes, and then leave. People laughed at him. They said it was pointless. Everything. But do you know what happened? He trained his brain that going to the gym was just what he did. No resistance. No battle. After a few weeks, his identity shifted. Everything. Going to the gym was no longer something he had to force. It was something he was. And when that shift happened, he naturally stayed longer. Eventually, he built a lifelong habit of fitness. Everything. Not because he forced himself, but because he started so small he couldn't fail. This is how real transformation begins. Everything. You design the habit so that it works for you instead of against you. You attach it to something you already do. For example, if you want to start meditating, everything. Don't just tell yourself you'll meditate sometime during the day. Attach it to an anchor, like brushing your teeth or making your morning coffee. You can say, after I brush my teeth, everything, I will meditate for 1 minute. That anchor makes it far more likely to stick because your brain loves patterns. Another powerful strategy is environment design. Far too often, we think failure is about weak character when really it's about poor setup. If you want to eat healthier, don't rely on willpower to resist junk food. Change your environment. Everything. Don't keep chips, cookies, and soda within reach. Instead, fill your kitchen with fruit, vegetables, and protein snacks. Make the good habit the easy option and the bad habit the hard one. Everything. If you want to read more, put a book on your pillow so you see it every night before bed. If you want to stop scrolling endlessly on your phone, everything. Delete the apps that waste your time or move them off your home screen so they're not so tempting. Everything. It's not about being stronger. It's about being smarter with the way you design your surroundings. Let's be honest, willpower fades, motivation comes and goes, but systems remain. Everything. If you rely only on feeling motivated, you'll lose the battle as soon as you wake up tired or stressed. But if you have designed your environment, if you have anchored your habits, everything, if you have made them simple and natural, then you don't need motivation. You just follow the pattern that's already there. Everything. That's why some people seem so consistent. It's not because they're superhuman. It's because they built systems that make consistency easy. Everything. Another thing to understand is the power of reward. Your brain loves instant gratification. That's why it's so easy to binge Netflix but so hard to write a book. Everything. One gives you a dopamine hit right away, the other pays off much later. So the secret is to build in small, immediate rewards for your good habits. For example, everything. If you're trying to build the habit of running, pair it with something you love, like listening to your favorite podcast only while you run. If you're trying to drink more water, everything. Celebrate the small act of finishing your bottle by checking it off on a habit tracker. That little hit of progress is often enough to keep the momentum alive. Everything. But perhaps the most powerful force in habit building is identity. You can tell yourself, I want to run a marathon, but that goal can feel distant. Instead, everything. Shift your focus to identity. I am a runner. Goals are about outcomes, but identity is about who you are. And when you start seeing yourself as the kind of person who does the habit, everything, it becomes harder not to do it. If you see yourself as a healthy person, skipping the workout feels inconsistent. If you see yourself as a writer, everything, not writing feels like betraying who you are. The most permanent habits are the ones tied to identity, not just to results. Of course, none of this means you'll be perfect. Everything. There will be days when you slip, when you skip, when you miss. That's part of being human. The danger is not missing once, it's letting that miss become a pattern. Everything. The trick is to adopt the never miss twice rule. If you skip a workout on Monday, fine. But Tuesday you get back on track. If you break your diet for one meal, fine. But the next meal, everything, you make a better choice. Progress is not about perfection, it's about persistence. Imagine your life 6 months from now if you picked one habit, just one, and made it stick. Everything, what would it be? Exercising daily, reading before bed, waking up earlier, eating healthier. Imagine yourself not struggling, not forcing it, but doing it naturally, automatically, everything. The way you brush your teeth, that's the power of habits designed to stick. They stop being something you do, and they start becoming who you are, everything. And here's what makes this so empowering. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. You just need to choose the right habits and build them one at a time. The small things, everything, done consistently, become the big things. Over time, you'll look back and realize that your daily actions have compounded into a completely new version of yourself. A stronger version, everything, a wiser version. A version who doesn't just dream of change, but lives it every single day. Life has a way of testing us in moments we least expect. You make a plan, everything. You pour your energy into it. You give it everything you think you've got. And just when you're ready to reap the rewards, something breaks. The deal falls through. Everything. The opportunity slips away. The effort doesn't pay off in the way you imagined. And in that moment, everything. It's tempting to believe that failure is the opposite of progress, that because you fell short, all that energy was wasted. But the truth is, setbacks are not dead ends. They are fuel, everything. They are raw material. They are the very sparks that can ignite your greatest breakthroughs if you choose to see them that way. Think about it. Everything. Every person who has achieved something remarkable has walked through seasons of rejection, disappointment, and loss. Everything. Thomas Edison famously tested thousands of filaments before finally creating a working light bulb. Each failure was not proof that he was incompetent. It was data insight, everything, knowledge about what didn't work. Those so-called failures paved the way to one of the greatest inventions of all time. If he had treated each unsuccessful attempt as final, everything, as proof that progress was impossible, we might still be living in darkness. The difference between people who stay stuck and those who rise higher is not the absence of setbacks, everything, but how they interpret and respond to them. When you face a setback, the first instinct is often to shrink, to retreat, to protect yourself from further disappointment. That's human, everything. But what if, instead, you leaned in? What if you asked, what is this teaching me? What can I extract from this experience that makes me wiser, tougher, sharper, everything? This single shift in perspective can transform what feels like a loss into the very fuel for your next win. I want you to picture a slingshot for a moment. To launch forward, everything, you first have to be pulled back. The farther the tension, the greater the propulsion. Setbacks work the same way. When life pulls you back, it's not always a punishment, everything. Sometimes it's preparing you for a powerful release, for a leap you couldn't make without that tension. The only requirement is that you stay in the game long enough to let go and fly, everything. Let's bring this down to the personal. Maybe you've tried to start a business, and it didn't work out. The customers didn't come, the money ran out, everything. The vision collapsed before your eyes. It stings. But inside that failure is information you could never have gained by staying safe. You now know what the market wants, or doesn't want, everything. You've learned about resilience, about money management, about the grind of entrepreneurship. That failure may not look like a win, but it gave you a toolbox you didn't have before, everything. And the next time you step into the arena, you won't be the same person. You'll be armed with the wisdom only setbacks can teach, everything. There's a reason athletes study their losses more intensely than their wins. When a boxer gets knocked down, the tape is reviewed again and again. Not to dwell on the defeat, everything, but to spot the weaknesses. To understand where the guard slipped, where the footwork failed, where the focus wavered. Those lessons, painful as they are, everything, become the training plan for the comeback. And when the athlete returns to the ring, they are not weaker because of the loss. They are stronger, sharper, more dangerous, everything, precisely because of it. And isn't life the same? The times you've been knocked down are the tapes you can study. Instead of asking, why me? Ask everything. What's here for me? This is how you turn pain into progress. Not by avoiding it, but by harvesting it. Every disappointment contains seeds of wisdom if you're willing to dig, everything. There's also something deeply human about the bond setbacks create. Think about how much more inspired you are by someone who overcame failure than someone who never stumbled. Everything. The undefeated story is interesting, but it's the comeback that captures hearts. It's the athlete who tore their ACL and fought their way back to the championship. Everything. It's the writer whose manuscript was rejected 30 times before it became a bestseller. It's the entrepreneur who went bankrupt before building an empire. Everything. Their stories resonate because we see ourselves in their struggle, and we see hope in their rise. Your setbacks, too, everything, can one day be the chapters in someone else's survival guide, if you choose to keep going. Now let's talk about the inner mechanics of resilience. When you hit a wall, everything, there are two voices that show up. One whispers, "This is proof you're not cut out for it." The other says, "This is the exact place where you grow." The question is, everything. Which voice will you feed? Because setbacks themselves don't define you. It's the meaning you assign to them that shapes your future. If you see them as roadblocks, you'll stop. Everything. If you see them as stepping stones, you'll climb. One practical way to turn setbacks into momentum is through reframing. Everything. Reframing means deliberately choosing a different interpretation of what happened. For example, instead of saying, "I failed that exam, I'm just not smart enough," you can say, "Everything. That exam exposed the gaps in my preparation, and now I know where to focus." The event didn't change, but the story you tell yourself did. Everything. And that story is what determines your next move. Another strategy is to create what I call a setback ritual. This is a simple, repeatable process you use whenever life knocks you down. Everything. Maybe it looks like taking one day to feel the sting, because yes, you're human. Then journaling 3 lessons you can carry forward. Everything. Then making one small action plan to apply those lessons immediately. This ritual transforms setbacks from something that leaves you stuck into something that moves you forward. Over time, everything. It conditions your brain to see failure not as the end of the road, but as part of the path. Everything. There's a beautiful concept in Japanese culture called kintsugi. It's the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they highlight them. Everything. Making the repaired piece even more valuable and beautiful than before. Your setbacks can be your kintsugi. The cracks in your journey, when healed with resilience, wisdom, and courage. Everything. Don't make you less, they make you more. They give your story depth, texture, and beauty. And remember, setbacks also build empathy. When you've suffered loss, rejection, everything, or disappointment, you develop a deeper compassion for others. You can look someone in the eye who is struggling and say, "I know how that feels." That empathy is a form of power. Everything. It makes you a better leader, a better friend, a better human. What once hurt you now equips you to help others. If you want momentum in life, you cannot avoid setbacks. You must use them. Everything. Picture a surfer waiting for a wave. The wave itself is chaotic, unpredictable, and even dangerous. But the surfer doesn't run from it. They learn to ride it. Everything. To channel its force for forward motion. Setbacks are your waves. They're not here to drown you. They're here to carry you, if you learn how to balance and adapt. Everything. And here's the paradox: some of your greatest breakthroughs may only come because of your setbacks. That heartbreak that forced you to reevaluate what you truly value. Everything. That lost job that pushed you into starting the business you always dreamed about. That failed attempt that redirected you toward a better opportunity. Everything. The pain you're trying to avoid may be the very path to your transformation. So the next time you face a setback, pause before you declare defeat. Look closer. Ask yourself, everything. What is the gift hidden here? How can I turn this into momentum? Because setbacks, when used wisely, are not the opposite of progress. They are the very engine of it. Everything. They shape your character, refine your skills, and harden your resolve in ways comfort never could. Greatness is never a single moment. It is never one victory, one performance, everything, or one achievement that makes a life remarkable. Greatness is the product of what you do when nobody is watching. Everything. The accumulation of decisions so small that most people don't even notice them. But here's the truth: the little things you repeat each day have a way of multiplying. Everything. Of compounding over time until they create a life that looks extraordinary. Think of it like drops of water filling a jar. One drop seems meaningless. 2 drops barely change the picture. Everything. But if you keep adding to it, day after day, that jar eventually overflows. What once felt like nothing at all becomes undeniable. That is the power of compounding into greatness. Everything. You don't need to change everything at once to live a better life. In fact, trying to overhaul your entire world in a single leap often leads to burnout. Everything. The path to lasting transformation is more subtle and far more powerful. Imagine improving by just 1% each day. It feels like almost nothing, doesn't it? But if you kept at it, everything. If you compounded that growth, you wouldn't just be a little better in a year. You would be radically different. The math of life is simple. Everything. Tiny consistent wins are worth more than massive inconsistent bursts. We see this truth play out everywhere. Consider the world of finance. $1 saved, invested wisely, everything and left to grow becomes far more than $1 over time. It compounds. Everything. What looks like a small contribution in the beginning eventually turns into wealth that feels almost impossible to trace back to its tiny origin. The same principle works in your body. Everything, your mind, your relationships, and your career. Consistency magnifies results. The ordinary, repeated long enough, becomes extraordinary. Everything. Think about the athlete who trains each morning before sunrise. At first, their progress is invisible. The body doesn't transform overnight. The stamina doesn't skyrocket in a week. Everything. But month after month, year after year, that athlete becomes something different. They become someone unrecognizable compared to where they started. And here's the key. Everything. It wasn't one workout that changed their life. It was the relentless accumulation of hundreds, maybe thousands of workouts, stacked on top of each other like bricks building a fortress. Everything, or picture the musician practicing their instrument. At the beginning, the notes sound shaky. The fingers stumble. The rhythm is uneven. But with repetition, day after day, everything. Those once clumsy hands move with elegance. What started as noise transforms into music. And when others finally hear the performance and say, "Whoa, everything. You're so talented," what they don't see is the compounding power of years of small, deliberate practice. Talent may have sparked the journey, but daily effort built the greatness. Everything. The same applies in less obvious ways. Think of a father who chooses, each day, to listen with patience to his child instead of brushing off their questions. It's a small act, everything barely noticeable. But over the years, that child grows with a sense of security, of love, of confidence, because the small deposits of patience compounded into a relationship of trust. Everything. Think of the employee who, instead of cutting corners, chooses integrity in the small things. One honest report, one thorough piece of work, one extra phone call to clarify details. Everything. None of these actions look heroic on their own. But when they pile up over the years, they build a reputation of reliability, opening doors to promotions, opportunities, and respect. Everything. What makes compounding so powerful is that it works both ways. Just as small positive actions multiply into greatness, small negative actions multiply into regret. A skipped workout here. Everything. A poor choice there. One day of procrastination. Alone, they don't seem to matter. But compounded over months and years, they create a body that is weaker, a mind that is duller. Everything. A life that feels stuck. The truth is, we are always compounding something. The only question is, are you compounding growth or decay? This is why daily choices are sacred. They are seeds. Everything. Some are seeds of greatness. Others are seeds of mediocrity. The garden of your life will always grow based on what you plant, not what you intend. Everything. And here's the liberating truth. You don't need to do everything perfectly. You don't even need massive change. You just need to plant the right seeds, consistently. Everything. A little discipline here, a little courage there, a small moment of learning, a single step forward repeated every day. Over time, everything. Those seeds bloom into something far greater than you imagined. Let me share a story. There was a man named James who decided he wanted to run a marathon. At the time, everything. He could barely jog a mile without gasping for air. Most people in his position would have quit, but James had one rule: improve a little bit each day. One day he ran a mile. The next day, everything. He ran a mile and walked another half. The following week, he was at 2 miles. Over the course of a year, he built himself up mile by mile, never missing more than a day. Everything. When he finally crossed the finish line of his first marathon, friends cheered at his sudden achievement. But James knew the truth. The marathon didn't happen that day. Everything. It happened every morning in the quiet miles he ran alone, compounding one step at a time into something extraordinary. When you think about compounding into greatness, everything, it's important to remove the illusion of overnight success. We often see the highlight reels, the gold medals, the best-selling books, everything, the thriving businesses, and we think they happen suddenly. But greatness hides in the shadows of routine. Behind every masterpiece is 1,000 drafts. Everything. Behind every championship is 1,000 early mornings. Behind every fortune is 1,000 disciplined decisions. Greatness doesn't show itself in one defining moment. Everything. It reveals itself in the quiet persistence of daily compounding. Now, how can you apply this in your own life? Start by asking yourself a simple question. Everything. What is one small action I can repeat every day that moves me forward? Don't aim for something overwhelming. Aim for something sustainable, everything. Maybe it's reading 10 pages of a book each night. That's not much. But in a year, you'll have read several books that could change the way you think, everything. Maybe it's doing 20 push-ups each morning. That's not heroic. But after a year, your strength and discipline will tell a different story, everything. Maybe it's setting aside 10 minutes to write, to reflect, or to plan. Just 10 minutes. But 10 minutes daily becomes 60 hours a year of focused clarity, everything. That's the magic of compounding. It's not just about habits, though. It's also about mindset. If you remind yourself daily that challenges are opportunities, that setbacks are lessons, everything, that progress is possible. Those thoughts compound too. Over time, you build a resilient, unstoppable mindset that doesn't crumble at the first sign of adversity, everything. The way you speak to yourself compounds into the story you believe about yourself. And the story you believe becomes the life you live, everything. Sometimes people resist this idea because they crave fast results. But here's a perspective shift. Fast results may look exciting, but they rarely last. What lasts is built slowly, everything. Think of a house. You could throw together walls in a rush, and it might look like progress. But if the foundation isn't strong, the house won't stand. Slow, everything. Steady compounding is how you pour the foundation of greatness. And once that foundation is solid, everything else has room to rise higher. So today, everything. You don't need to transform your entire life. You only need to ask yourself, what drop of water will I add to my jar today? What small brick will I place on my fortress? Everything. What seed will I plant in the soil of my future? Because if you keep adding, if you keep stacking, if you keep planting everything, then one day you will look back and realize you are living in the harvest of your daily effort. Greatness is not an event waiting in the future. It is the life you are compounding right now, everything in this very moment, with every choice you make.